So Gary, water, 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 right? I mean, I heard today that the drought is over in Northern California, although it's raining cats and dogs in the Bay Area. So one of the important things I know that our city's working on is water, and you've been the lead. So what's different about the way we're approaching the water issue here? The California drought, the issues of groundwater, the issues of the agricultural community, and the regional issues in terms of the water. What's the city doing about all of that?
It's a great question, Ray. I think the city has begun to really become active in regional water projects, seeking solutions that address all of Monterey County's needs, so providing a sustainable supply of water for both the agricultural industry and the hospitality industry. We're doing that in a number of ways. We began an innovative process. One of the great thinking ideas that came out of the city of Salinas is bagged salad. And the washing process for that bagged salad produces about 400 million gallons of water a year that was simply going to ponds and just evaporating or percolating away. And we figured out, working with the Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency, how to put that water into recycling. Currently, that water is being recycled and sent all the way to Castroville, where it is being sprayed on artichoke crops.
Wow.
And instead of pumping water out of the ground and pulling seawater in from the ocean, we're putting water on the ground and pushing the seawater back out. It's a process that's been underway for some time, but with the drought, it got a lot harder to get the water to do that. So we provided that water, and as we began to look at that project, which is now known as the Pure Water Monterey Project, we also figured out that there was other available sources of water which had not been considered.
Oh, really?
Agricultural tailwater, water that run off from irrigation, water that runs through the reclamation ditch that's captured from farmlands that are being drained, and that those waters could be available and made usable for, again, for recycling, but not just for the agricultural industry. But we found that the need is so great on the Monterey Peninsula for water that the Pollution Control Agency has decided to build what's called an advanced water treatment plant that recycles water to a drinking level. With the decline in available drinking water on the Monterey Peninsula, the entire hospitality industry is under stress, and that the aquifers, the seaside aquifer, has been overdrafted for some years.
Right.
The Carmel River needs water to protect fish habitat.
Right.
So this would provide another source. The really important thing to understand, because we're sitting there with a lot of the growers saying, why does Salinas care
Right.
about the peninsula? But we realize we have over 2,000 jobs a day in the hospitality industry on the Monterey Peninsula. Those jobs are so important to our community. So we needed to work with a variety of partners to provide solutions for both industries. We're well on our way. I think one of the really exciting pieces of this is we just got a $10 million state grant to start to recycle stormwater, to capture that and recycle that to provide agriculture and drinking water as well.
Right.
And that's a recognition by the state that what we're doing is really innovative and really creative.
Now, the ponds you talk about, those are ponds the city owns and has owned for some time, right? And then you're taking that water somehow up to this Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency. So how's that happening? Is that an engineering feat? Is that something that can happen relatively simply? Or is it something that you have to design and engineer?
Well, the answer is both, but I think it's great. This is one of the things I really like about this project. It's important to understand that the pond and that system for treating water has been in place since the 1940s.
Wow.
For dehydrated fruit and vegetables for the war effort. And when produce washing and produce processing came on ground, that system became more and more important. So we've been in the process of rebuilding that. And what we found, though, is that water that goes out to the ponds passes in very close proximity to the primary sanitary sewer pump for the city of Salinas that transfers all of our waste to Marina for processing. So we were able to actually stick a plug into one of the pipes, reverse the flow, and overnight make that water available. Since then, we've built a more permanent structure that's automated, so with the push of the button, we can send the water either to the ponds or to the sanitary sewer for recycling. With the grant that we've got to enhance that entire system, we're also looking at how to convert those ponds to storage, which is one of the big issues, is how to capture winter water and make that available in the summer. So we're hoping to put a return line in and convert the ponds to small reservoirs and begin to move the water back and forth.
Well, talk about a little bit about the tension. Now, water is perhaps more important than whiskey, right? In terms of, the resources and the limitation on that resource. And it's become a critical issue in the West, particularly. And in Monterey County, there are many people, many agencies and organizations that have a right to the water. How did you organize, and how did you, go about the process of getting agreement on making sure that the water could be used, the Salinas water, wastewater, could be used for a variety of purposes? It seems to me that took enormous effort with many different partners.
It did. We brought together people that have never worked together. I think one of the great accomplishments of the pure water process is breaking down what we call the lettuce curtain, which is the range of mountains that separates the Salinas Valley from the Monterey Peninsula. Water Management District, the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District has been a great partner at the table. They brought people from the peninsula. We brought people from the valley. We've worked with growers. And we spent nearly 2 years really literally hammering out an agreement with a lot of give and take, a lot of lengthy conversations to determine who could most benefit. And I think you have to get to a shared framework of understanding and mutual benefit. We did that for 2 years, and then right on the heels of that came state legislation for groundwater basin management. And groundwater basin, in California, we're so environmentally forward in some ways, but we're one of the last states to begin to regulate the quality of water in the ground, in the aquifers that farmers use and that well water comes from and drinking water comes from. So with that legislation came a whole new need to bring growers and environmental interests and disadvantaged communities and cities and agencies together to figure out how to manage the groundwater basin. But what we learned a lot from the pure water process, and we began with a 25-member stakeholder group, with 15 meetings over a 1-year period of time, figuring out how to govern, create an agency to govern groundwater. We've come a long ways. There's an agreement for a joint powers authority with an 11-member board that is circulating for approval. But I think what I really like about this is that we have people working together that are new to working together, but out of need, out of the understanding that we all need water, we're really figuring it out.
Right. Was there the fear also that perhaps in the groundwater that the state could exercise its own solution if the locals didn't come to some local understanding?
Yes, it is the threat of the state that if you don't get your act together for groundwater basin management by June of this year, that the state will come in and take it over for you at great cost. And local control, especially over something important as water, is really critical. I think that's one of the reasons people were willing to come to the table and reach agreement.
Right. So on the pure water, what does that mean to the residents, the community of Salinas? How does that benefit our community?
Well, so the single greatest threat to prosperity in the Salinas Valley is seawater intrusion. If that seawater moves up the river basin, which it has, and has grown over the years, you can't grow crops in that soil. You can't grow crops with salt water. So one of the things that this does is protects the agricultural industry by halting or managing that seawater intrusion. It also ensures that we're providing water for other sources, and it will protect the quality of our drinking water for our citizens, which is really important. And given that we're trying to be as smart as possible and using existing infrastructure and a lot of different sources of funding, trying to keep the cost of that, keep the cost of everything low so it becomes more affordable.
So in this current Pure Water agreement, how many partners are there formally in terms of how that system will work?
In the Pure Water system, there's 5 major partners. There's the City of Salinas, the Water Resources Agency, the County of Monterey, the Water Pollution Control Agency, and the Water Management District. However, the benefit extends well beyond that into all of the industry and multitudes who will benefit from that in Monterey County. I think it's also really important that we understand that it's a whole system of water, and even as we look to the groundwater basin management, and it says that 20 years of sustainability means in 20 years you have the same volume of water at the same quality, yet you're supposed to achieve that while extracting water, and you have to develop a plan to manage that it's going to take an even greater level of integration between Pure Water, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, ultimately the Water Resources Agency, to start to look at all of the sources of water working together in a fashion that creates true sustainability to ensure a long-term supply of water for our entire county.
Right. So Pure Water was the first step. The state says you gotta take care of the groundwater, and it has to be sustainable. So you have to create an agency and then a plan eventually. So once that's done, what's the next step in terms of the future of water? So you have Pure Water, you have groundwater, and then what's on the horizon beyond that?
Well, it's a great question. We're seeing the drought and we're seeing the shortage of water and we're seeing potential climate change drive a lot of new technology. So I think we're going to see a lot of on-site water processing for immediate reuse. I think that one of the things that's really exciting is we're starting to look up and down the valley now that all water has value, that we're talking about bringing in smaller sanitary sewer systems. Like you could look at Toro Park, you could look at Spreckles, all the way down to Chular. If we can capture that water, capture the effluent, bring it in for treatment, it accomplishes a number of things. It provides new source water for recycling, but it also keeps nitrates out of the groundwater, provides safe drinking water for underserved communities, and ultimately allows for the expansion of farm labor housing, which is greatly needed in our valley as well. So as this continues to expand the entire idea of One Water, there are multiple what we call conjunctive uses, multiple benefits of uses by a number of parties, and ultimately the transformation of how we think about the use of water, water protection, and water sustainability.
Will that also change the habits of our residents in terms of how they use and conserve and look at water in the future?
Well, we've been under a state mandate to conserve, and
Right.
certainly the Monterey Peninsula has been conserving for years. We've gotten a lot better in Salinas. We've met all the guidelines, arriving at a 25% reduction in urban water. And though with all the rain, a lot of people think the drought is over, it is much more complex than that. It would likely take 2 to 3 years of rain like this continuous to address the deep groundwater issues, the snowpack issues, and all of those things that combine to provide water. So I think that we're going to see conservation in our future. We're going to see more technologies, I said earlier, with low flow equipment, shower heads. But all of us have had this experience now of realizing that water is something we cannot take for granted.
So going back to Pure Water, once the sort of complete picture realized, when will that project actually be fully realized, executed?
So about 2018, a really big piece has been passed with the environmental document has been passed. Funding has been rounded up for the actual construction of the projects. The Public Utilities Commission has moved this project ahead of a number of other solutions. So there's a lot of momentum, a lot of resources are lining up, and the goal is to be producing drinking water to the peninsula by 2018. And that drinking water will move through some pipelines across Fort Ord and be injected into the Seaside Aquifer, where it will be stored and then extracted by Cal-Am to distribute on the peninsula.
And that'll help their state mandate or state order they're under, right? They have a cease and desist order on their current overdrafting, as you mentioned, on the Carmel River as well as the Seaside Aquifer?
It will. It will reduce any need for desal, reduce down, and it will also help recharge the Seaside Aquifer, which is really important,
Right.
and provide a steady supply of potable drinking water for the peninsula, which is what they most need. And then as we continue to look and expand this project, we begin to need to, we'll be able to see what other available sources, because it's going to be important to get as much water as we can where it needs to go.
Right. So you mentioned a JPA. What we're talking about is Joint Powers Authority, right? A different, a governance model, if you will, to handle the sustainability of groundwater. And how many members, and what are some of the costs that might be involved in that, setting up that organization?
Yeah, so we decided that the best thing going forward was to develop a whole new quasi-governmental organization, a Joint Powers Authority, which has many of the same governing powers as, say, like a city council. It is made of members that are of legal municipal status, so all the cities are a part of it, the counties are part of it, those who choose to sign on. Then there's an 11-member board that will be made of people appointed by the member agencies. For an example, the agricultural seats will be appointed by the county. The city of Salinas has a seat and will appoint the public utilities water agencies. There's 2 of those in that. The county will appoint an environmental representative, a public representative. Castroville Municipal Services District, Castroville Service Area will also appoint a member of a small utility. So 11 folks, and we expect to spend about $1 million a year probably. The big cost will come, first we have to build the agency and get some staff on board. Then we've got to build the plan. We've got 3 years to build a plan that will result in 20 years of sustainability. A lot of work underway right now. The science is going to be really big in this, to understand the groundwater basin, to see where the water is. One of the things you learn in this process, nobody can see in the ground. Yeah. So where is the water? What is the quality of that water? So 3 years will be spent developing a plan. So that's got to be funded. The Joint Powers Authority will have the authority to establish its own funding mechanism. Okay. It is not known what that will be yet. Could be a well tax, could be a Proposition 218 vote, could be a parcel tax, to be determined, but it's going to have to be funded, and because this work has to happen going forward.
So give us a timeline in terms of when the agency, this new governance organization would be executed, implemented, and when does that start, and when would they hire their staff and get rolling, if you will, to start the planning process?
Right. So we have by June of this year, June of 2017, to have a Joint Powers Authority board up and running. First thing we have to do is create an interim board with an interim general manager, which would be me, trying to get everything in place to get the board actually seated and a full-time manager hired. Right. So that needs to happen by June, and then we have until 2020 to develop a plan, and then we have till 2040 to achieve sustainability, which says that in 2040 we'll have the same amount of water at the same quality as we have now. So that's the state timeline. A lot of things will happen in that period, but for us right now, getting the final approvals for the Joint Powers Authority and getting it up and running is key, and I certainly want to get a manager in place as soon as possible.
So how does that impact your department? You're the Director of Public Works, and you've taken on some new major responsibilities. Water is not the least of them. So how does that impact your operation? How do you handle the development of overseeing that? How are you organized to address that? And are there other staff or other people involved in this whole issue of water and public works?
So this year, working with you, we were able to reorganize and establish the Water, Waste, and Energy Division. We didn't want to call it the Sustainability Division, but essentially that's what we're looking at. What are the best ways? Because when you look at water and waste and energy, certainly with water and waste, you're looking at things that were once considered liabilities that are now considered assets. They have value. And then also energy, we've been out on the forefront. We just do a $25 million energy retrofit project. We're generating almost 4 megawatts of solar. We're looking at a tri-county community aggregate power group to buy and sell green power. So we formed a division that has the responsibility for that. They also manage our stormwater and a number of planning efforts. So we do that, but also the capital projects. We've rolled some of the big pipeline projects, any expenditures into our normal engineering process to get those built in partnership with the pollution control agencies and some others. It does continue to expand, but I think a modern public works department, you have to stay up with the times. And these are the most pressing issues we have. We will keep building roads, we'll keep repairing sidewalks, we'll do all the things the public works department has always done. But if we look at the pressing issues both regionally and locally, it has to be about how we provide for a quality of life going forward with our community. And that means having a water supply. That means making best use of resources around water and energy. So we created a whole department to focus on that. And we're making great strides, a lot of good money coming in. We know more about our energy uses and the savings that we're realizing than we've ever known. So a lot of good work coming out of that department.
Now the legislature will be back in session soon, the state legislature. Will they be looking at any additional efforts on the waterfront? I mean, it was sort of, I wouldn't say a surprise, but certainly one that came at the last part of a session a year ago on the groundwater. Are there other issues that, in terms of water, that need to be addressed at the legislature to help the water effort in Monterey County?
Well, certainly, but I think one of the things that happened that's so important is the citizens of the state approving Proposition 1, the water bond, which brought billions of dollars into water and into water projects. We're also seeing that there's more money coming from the federal level. Our $10 million grant that we got came out of that funding. Wow. So there's more money available. We need to go after it and get that. I don't know, whenever the legislature's in session, I'm not sure what to feel about that. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's always interesting.
Right.
But I think that the eye is on water and that we've done very well in Monterey County. Both the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, we are ahead of everyone for the formation of new agencies. Mm-hmm. The award of the $10 million grant, we went up against the city of Los Angeles for that money. Wow. They got 20 million, we got 10. So I think there's a lot of recognition that we're really being creative and innovative and trying to solve problems. We're not messing around. We've got work to do and we're taking it on. Right. And I think we're going to continue to see that as we go forward. I think we have some good legislators that have our interest at heart. They're all briefed. They all know that we're doing it. And all of them have had the tour of the Pure Water Project and drank the water that you can drink from a treated effluent. Right. Like drinking the Kool-Aid, but you drink the water. So I think we're in good shape and hoping that they do that. I know there's a lot of bigger water projects and the Delta projects. And of course, as a water professional, I watch with great fascination. And I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but I know in Monterey County, we're just making great strides.
So, from a city's perspective, you have to deal with a number of state agencies because it's not one single agency that handles water at the state level. So can you describe that labyrinth to how do you fit in that maze of regulatory agencies and different agencies having different responsibilities in water? You mentioned one, the State Water Resources Control Agency. That's one, but there are others.
Yeah, so when I started in working on water 3 or 4 years ago, I used to have a matrix of just the Monterey County agencies trying to separate the Water Management District from the Water Resources Agency, from the Pollution Control Agency, from Marina Coast, separating all of those. You move up to the state, we do have the State Water Quality Control Board and the Central Coast office that they have. We answer to both of them. The Department of Water Resources is very big. We deal a lot with fish and wildlife on those. Then you move up to the federal level with the Bureau of Reclamation, the Army Corps of Engineers, and we've had them out to look at flooding issues in Carr Lake. So there's a whole host of agencies that are dedicated to the management of water. And just when you think you might have something figured out, you'll find out who the next agency is.
So what can our residents expect soon in terms of seeing any progress on the waterfront?
Well, I think that what we're going to see is, optimally, what we'll see is that things will remain the same. That we'll have the same amount of water available. It'd be great if we could get out of water restrictions, but that's going to be more a product of climate change. But we're going to be doing our best to provide water, I think secure, safe drinking water, irrigation water for our industries. So at our very best, it will look the same as it always has. Where we don't want it to change is to where it starts to go backwards and we start to lose the ability to provide irrigation or maintain arable farmland, and that the quality of that land that's so important to the valley it goes into seawater. So to see that, hopefully we'll see a lessening of restrictions on use. But our stormwater plan is something that is sometimes the bane of my existence. It's very challenging. We're responsible for the quality of water that runs off of the city of Salinas. It's why we're so excited about the opportunity to recycle that and clean it up and reuse it rather than put it in the river and have it go to the marine sanctuary. So we're constantly trying to manage water for quality. I think people are going to hear more about that as we go forward, the importance of dealing with runoff. Certainly our construction industry knows how important it is to manage the water at those sites. So I think there'll be more regulation, but really the most important part, I think, is to maintain what we have.
Right. So in terms of where we are as an organization, as a city, as a public works department, we're probably at the forefront and not a follower, essentially, in the water game.
Oh, we're leaders. I think it's the great words you said to me when you came to Salinas, which I have two words for you, Gary: Salinas leads. And we have been out front on the water. We've been outspoken, we've been assertive. But the way we see it is that we're seeking regional systemic solutions. And that means that for us, the city of Salinas will get what we need, but everyone's place will improve because of that, because we're making better use, we're trying to be smarter, we're not taking things for granted, we're making investments, I think, in the right places. So we are the biggest city between San Jose and Oxnard, and we need to watch out for ourselves, at the same time work closely with our neighbors. And we're seeing it on energy, we're seeing it in solid waste, and we're seeing it in water. We're going to see it in animal control and 911 as we continue to stand up and seek good solutions, not just for ourselves, but for the entire region.
Well, thank you, Gary. This is very complex, and it's a major issue. Many people talk about it, and few people do much with the water issue. But it seems like our city is well positioned, and also in a great place, in terms of being taken care of for our future water needs. So, congratulations.
Thanks, Ray. I have a passion for it, clearly. Yeah. And I like the quote by the poet W.H. Auden, who says, "Thousands have lived without love, but not a single one without water." That's how important it is.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.